Football Outsiders live stream. I'm Aaron Schatz, the editor-in-chief of Football Outsiders, joined today by Mike Tanier, as always, for our Thursday game preview shows. And Tom Gower is joining us today to talk about this week's games. I'm back from my vacation.
I'm back!
Hello to all you live stream regulars who may have missed me over the last few days. Thank you for watching us on YouTube and Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, in the corner of our website where we have the little widget. Want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the show and check us out every day at 1 p.m. Eastern. And limited time offer, Football Outsiders FO Plus, to get all of our picks, all of our fantasy football tools, all of our stat breakdowns. Get that for only 99 cents a week with an annual subscription. So make sure to check that out, footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. How was Vegas? It was expensive. It was fun. But the more and more, I remember when I was a kid and I went to Vegas with my father when we lived in California. And back then, the food was cheap. And the idea was that they enticed you with cheap food and cheap hotels so that they could get you to spend your money on the gambling. And now you can gamble anywhere in the country because of Native American casinos. And therefore, they need something else to draw you to Vegas. And the way that they draw you to Vegas now is with expensive shows and expensive food with famous chefs. But the expensive food with famous chefs is expensive.
Well, you ate Gordon Ramsay's steakhouse.
I ate at Gordon Ramsay's steakhouse, and it was hundreds of dollars. It's the kind of thing you do once every 5 years.
What did you get? What'd you get?
Unless you play in the NFL, in which case you do it all the time.
What'd you order? What'd you get?
I got the beef Wellington, the famous beef Wellington, and the famous sticky toffee cake for dessert.
Well, damn! No wonder you spent a couple $100. That
and
sounds
my girlfriend got like an 18-ounce ribeye. That was phenomenal.
Nice.
So I did not do much gambling, but I will say that I did go to a sports book and put down some futures bets, since it is not legal where I sit right now. I put my money where my mouth is. I put money on the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC.
Okay.
I put money on the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC.
Okay.
I put money on Kansas City to win the AFC West.
Huh.
And then I put a $5 long shot what the hell bet on the Minnesota Vikings to win the NFC.
You had me until the end there.
It pays a lot of money. It pays like $150 if they do it. That was my $5 what the hell long shot. Better in DVOA than their record. What the hell? Let's do it.
I don't know. Your Vegas adventure is giving me the urge to just drive to Atlantic City and do almost the same thing at like 1/10 of the price.
Yes, I am. I'm sure Atlantic City is not as expensive as Vegas, although I'm guessing it's more expensive than it was in the 80s.
It's not that expensive, and it's also not very good.
Oh, okay. They've got to have some celebrity chef places and stuff like that.
They've got some fancy restaurants mixed in. We also have beach bars, which are not very good in November, but can be a lot of fun. Tiki bars outside in June, July, August. That can be a lot of fun in Atlantic City. Yes,
the weather was perfect. I mean, the weather was 75 degrees and sunny every day. It was fantastic. We went hiking in Red Rock Canyon, which was beautiful. Tom, have you been to Vegas?
I have not been to Vegas in almost 20 years. So,
it's more expensive now.
Yeah, I suspect if I went, I'm not much of a gambler, so I suspect if I went, I'd want to try the restaurants. But I do most of my restaurant exploring around here at various barbecue places.
Yeah, you're in Austin, right?
Yes, I'm in the Austin area.
So another one of us who's not where gambling is legal at this point. I believe Texas has not passed legal yet, but it's coming. It's coming in every state. Joey Suck says, are the celebrity chefs in AC people from Jersey Shore?
It's the guys from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They come down on the weekend, and that's who the celebrity chefs are. Jimmy DeVito, celebrity chef.
I was going to say, there is an Always Sunny celebrity chef episode would be probably hilarious.
It would be.
Finding them lost in Atlantic City. So we want to preview the games of Week 11. But first, because Tom is on, and he is our resident Tennessee Titans fan, we don't want to really preview the Tennessee Titans game this week. Here's the preview. Houston is terrible. If you want revenge, if Tennessee fans feel like there's some sort of revenge on Houston, although I guess the revenge goes the other way, Houston fans want revenge on Tennessee, and they're not going to get it. Tennessee should win that game easily. I wanted to see what Tom feels about the fact that DVOA really does not like the Tennessee Titans this year, despite the fact that they're 8-2. I will note before you give your thoughts, the other advanced stat metrics around the web are higher on the Titans than we are, but not as high. Most of the people who do sort of subjective power rankings have the Titans like 1 or 2 at this point. I know that like FPI from ESPN has them like 9th.
Yeah.
And then we have them 18th.
So I was before the show. I was in Sunday's game against the Saints. The Titans scored 2 touchdowns and kicked 3 field goals. The Saints scored 3 touchdowns and kicked 1 field goal. So normally in that, and so I looked that up, and since 1960, which is as far back as PFR has opponent-made field goal data in a query search, teams with the Saints 3 touchdowns and a field goal are 69-3-1 against teams with 2 touchdowns and a field goal.
Okay.
So if you have a game like the Titans did on Sunday, just in terms of the results, you are extraordinarily unlikely to win that game.
Right.
But the Titans won it anyway. And so I think the interesting thing right now is the post-Derrick Henry offense, because Adrian Peterson and Donta Foreman are managing to replicate the 2.7 yards per carry that Derrick Henry had in his last 2 games. But the passing offense has really been basically effectively neutered. And that made sense when they were going against the Rams with Bobby Hart at left tackle. Ryan Tannehill had like a 2.35 seconds average time to throw that week. And with the picks that Matt Stafford threw, they had the easy points on offense, so it made sense that they didn't have to do much. New Orleans is still an okay defense. Sorry.
They're a very good defense, as we'll be discussing in a couple of minutes.
Yes.
Yeah, so they have so New Orleans has a quality defense, so it makes sense that they didn't have a great game offensively. But I think especially with Antonio Brown AJ Brown, and not much else at wide receiver, they're frankly still looking for what they can do that's repeatedly good on offense. And I mentioned this in Audibles this week, that if you look at their scoring drives, it's okay. They got to score off their 2 random big plays. They only had 2 plays longer than 17 yards that game. And they got to score in a short field. They got to score after converting a 4th down, which is a coin flip. And they got to score when a bad roughing the passer penalty took away an end zone interception. So it's like, yes, they shouldn't have any issues with Houston this week, and they play Houston again in Week 18. They still get another game against Jacksonville. Their schedule's really easy. They're in a great spot. ESPN has them at 9 in FPI, and also the favorite to be the number 1 seed, because their schedule is really that easy, and they don't have to be that good. So they have a lot of leeway to get healthier and for the team to improve. But I mean, So one of the things I wondered about was how many number 1 seeds have been underdogs at home in the divisional round. And it's the Eagles a couple of years ago against the Falcons with Nick Foles.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I think that's it.
Yeah, I would wonder which wild card team would make them. They probably will be favored. You're right; they're the favorite for the number 1 seed. I think even our playoff odds have them as the favorite, like something like 49%. And I can't imagine that whatever team wins the 7th seed in the AFC is going to be favored over them.
Yeah, just ballparking it off DVOA, it looks like the Patriots are currently the best bet, because they could end up as a wild card, beat a mediocre division winner, and just end up as the.
Right.
And that game it might be a toss up, but I mean the 2010 Falcons were the team I first thought of. They were a 1.5 point favorite against a Green Bay team that was by DVOA just as good as the 15-1 Green Bay team would be the next year.
Yes.
So that's a pretty rare thing. It's very strange to see them keep winning in ways that don't feel replicable, but they still keep winning anyway.
They replicate the unreplicable win, because it was 2 in a row. Oh, we got a lead. 1 because of turnovers, 1 because the Saints can't get out of their own way on offense right now. And then they just held on to a lead, not by like running the ball and controlling the ball, but just by holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
By the Saints missing 2 extra points.
Yeah.
And kicking a field goal from the 1 yard line.
Yeah.
And it's really set up. I will say it's set up to make me look really bad because they had all these unreplicable wins against hard opponents.
Right.
And now they're about to have probably a bunch of replicable wins over easy opponents.
Right.
And they're probably going to win the number 1 seed. And by the time we hit the playoffs, Julio Jones will be back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's possible Derrick Henry will be back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So they could be a better team in the playoffs than they are now.
Right.
I mean, their defense has been really good, but their secondary is still really, the defensive line has been so good. The secondary is still, I think, really questionable.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at something like ESPN's pass rush win rate, they're still, the defensive line is only average, so they're not really getting quick pressure. It's the secondary's covering for the 2.5 seconds to get it out, to make the quarterback just hold the ball and not throw it to his first read necessarily, and then the defensive line is getting there. And one of the things somebody pointed out a couple of weeks ago is this really looks like a Jim Schwartz pass rush plan. It's okay, here's where the quarterback is going to be on his drop. Here's how we're going to manipulate our defensive linemen and set up these twists and stunts and really getting there. And it's much more definite and explicit and specific than it seems like past Mike Vrabel pass rush plans have been. So I think it seemed like it took about 6 weeks for that to really show up, but that seems to be really showing up now. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, I feel like an idiot for not figuring this out.
The really interesting game, I think, is next week. The Patriots may be the hardest team left. I don't have Tennessee's schedule in front of me, but the Patriots may be the hardest team left on Tennessee's schedule.
It's that game looks like their most difficult game.
And that's going to be,
it's being played in New England.
That's going to be a fascinating one because the Patriots are now DVOA's love child after their ridiculous win over Cleveland this week, and Tennessee is the team that DVOA hates. And the fact is Vegas feels similarly because I believe that the look-ahead line has the Patriots favored over Tennessee next week. So, but before we get to that game, we have to play tonight's game. So let's start previewing Week 11 with tonight's game, where I believe in the notes I wrote, this one will be quick. So,
yes, you did.
New England at Atlanta. New England makes the playoffs in 91% of simulations when they win, 74% when they lose. Atlanta, 4% when they win, 1% when they lose. So
I have a great feeling about the Atlanta Falcons.
It's not how much DVOA loves the Patriots. It's how much DVOA hates Atlanta.
You know who else hates Atlanta? Everyone. Okay. No one sees Patriots Falcons on the screen and says, yeah, this is the Falcons. They're due. This is their revenge. This is going to be a walk. And you can see it, by the way. We all put our Mac Jones articles out simultaneously. Like this is the moment. This is it. They're going to play. They're going to walk. He's going to look even better after this game, and then we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, this is Atlanta is 31st in defense, so it is set up for Mac Jones to look good.
Yes, yeah, and on offense, I don't know if Cordarrelle Patterson is healthy. I think they have some other injuries on offense as well. So I don't know how the Falcons are going to move the ball, and I don't know how they're going to stop the run, and I don't know how they're going to stop the pass. Otherwise, it's a really tough game to handicap.
And I think you could have tried to feel better about Atlanta before last week, and they just got completely annihilated by Dallas. So,
yeah, I will say, speaking about making Mac Jones look good, PFR has Atlanta with the worst pressure rate in the NFL.
Wow.
So that will make Mac Jones look good. And on the other side, the Patriots are 29th in DVOA against running backs as receivers, which would be really exciting if Cordarrelle Patterson was going to play, but he's probably not.
He's not going to play.
And they are number 1 against tight ends.
Right. The one guy that you can probably name right now on the Falcons. The two guys really, because Hurst and Pitts, of course.
I wonder if the Patriots are going to put J.C. Jackson on Pitts, basically treat him as a big wide receiver and be like, look, that's their best guy. This is our best corner. Here you go.
It makes sense, especially how often Pitts is either in the slot or out wide, especially over the last couple of weeks. They're using that 12 personnel and all, but they're using Hurst or somebody else at tight end, and they're putting him in the slot. So it's very possible they do that.
Because, I mean, now with no Ridley, how afraid are you of Olamide Zacchaeus?
I'm scared.
I think Ryan can still play, but he's just got nothing around him. He doesn't have a good offensive line. They have a bad defense. It's Ryan and Pitts, and that's it.
Right. And I've been watching their games, and Ryan is starting to fade a little bit too. It's hard to tell, again, because when you have no wide receivers and you're kind of trying to get off of your mark at 30-something and move around and fire the ball downfield on the run, it's not going to look good, but it does not look good for Ryan. There's so little. By the way, I did look ahead. You mentioned the look ahead line, and I will say Patriots are 3-point favorites against the Titans in a couple weeks.
Yeah. That's next week's game. That is going to be a much better game than either New England or Tennessee's games this week. But I will say the thing about blowout, you can still bet on them.
Yes.
It shocks me that this line moved towards the Falcons today.
Oh, my God.
It is now Patriots minus 6.5.
Oh, my God.
I am taking that all day and twice on Sunday, except I'm not taking it on Sunday because the game is tonight. So I'm actually taking it on Thursday.
I took it already. I believe it was at 7 when I took it on a parlay with the under because I don't think the Falcons will cooperate to get over 47 points. I think they'll get hammered. And finally, I took the Patriots defense as an anytime scorer. I believe I had them at plus 450.
That is not a bad idea.
Right. The J.C. Jackson factor, the idea that the Falcons are going to be flailing and that they're going to put up a pick six or a strip sack or something like that. The odds are high enough to plus 450 made sense. Insulates me because I took the under. So if they go over because of pick sixes and stuff, I've got a little insurance.
Tom, do you want to try to make a case for Falcons plus 6.5?
No, not really. The Falcons look feisty against the teams that beat themselves, and the Patriots don't fall into that category to me.
Yep,
that makes sense. Who is Matt Ryan's backup?
Josh Rosen! He got to play last week.
Who is it?
Josh Rosen.
Josh Rosen is Matt Ryan's backup, and I believe the third stringer is Felipe Franks.
Also their starting wide receiver, tight end, slot guy, and Taysom impersonator.
They've used him like they've used him doing other things, right? But yes, Joey Suck says, who is Matt Ryan's backup? I don't know, but I suspect we will hear his name tonight. Yes.
We just did really loud. It almost blew out the speakers. Tom, you're so excited about Josh.
There is a good chance.
If I'm going to get a Thursday night game that's going to be a blowout, I want to see formerly interesting players deep in the game.
We may have
Texas high school football playoffs.
Hoyer versus Rosen in the fourth quarter, folks.
Oh, gosh.
You can bet on first quarters, but I don't know if you bet fourth quarters very much.
Well, you can bet in game. You can go in at the end and see if you can get a spread that you like, which I'm not going to be doing because I hope to be in bed by then.
Joey says Felipe Franks is a name that has a big utility infielder energy to it. And you forgot the extra E in Felipe. It's actually Felipe, kind of, or something.
Yes. So the extra E because he's a middle infielder and he commits an error. So there you are.
So he is. LL Salerno says Felipe Franks sounds like a poor man's Taysom Hill. That's because Felipe Franks is a poor man's Taysom Hill. Speaking of Taysom Hill, let's move to our second game of the week. Let's go to Sunday now, 1 p.m. and New Orleans at Philadelphia, which this shocked me. This is the most important game of the week for playoff odds. Because Philadelphia is still in this thing.
Yes.
So New Orleans, 79% of the time with a win, they make the playoffs, 41% with a loss. Philadelphia, 39% of the time they make the playoffs with a win, only 8% with a loss. So basically a must-win game for the Eagles, but I believe that a win puts them at 500 and keeps them in that wild NFC wildcard race.
Yep.
And to me, the big story of this game is Philadelphia has tuned its strategy so much to the quality of the run defenses they have faced this year. Yes. Will they completely abandon the run against the Saints' run defense that is the best in the league?
I think they will. I think they will try to return to that screen pass heavy misdirection heavy and deep pass heavy approach against the New Orleans Saints. Because you're right, number one in run DVOA, number one when you watch them on the field. Obviously, that's the strength of them. And the Eagles have had a positive 3 overall DVOA over the last 3 weeks. So they are definitely playing better on both sides of the ball, particularly on offense. The question is, they've done that mostly through getting more balance in their running game. Can they pivot back to what they were doing in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 while not losing the capability? And that's the question. One of the questions I have entering this game.
I think the Saints, it's interesting spreading the field against the Saints. The Saints are 32nd when covering other wide receivers.
Interesting.
Which in the Eagles' case, I believe would be Quez Watkins.
Quez or Jalen Reagor if he's the other guy. Eagles have a lot of other. Like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside has been sort of the other for a couple of years now.
Does J.J. Arcega-Whiteside even play? Is he even active anymore?
He was. I saw him get hurt on special teams recently. So he must be. He must be out there somewhere. He was early in the year. He was blocking on a lot of those screens. So, yeah, I think we're probably going to see a more of a spread field approach, going back to the future a little bit, what we saw earlier in the season. What I'm wondering is how the Saints offense is going to move the ball. I know Kamara is expected to be back, but Tom, you watched that game last week. They were struggling to do anything offensively until the fourth quarter.
They didn't. I've had issues with their depth at wide receiver and running back beyond Kamara, and then Michael Thomas, who obviously hasn't played this year. Yeah. And it's like they didn't have weapons beyond those two guys last year, or the past couple of years, and now it's just Kamara. And without Kamara, they didn't have anything to really threaten anybody. Right. And so Trevor Siemian did play a little better as the game went along, but it's almost like you wrote about this in walkthrough today, Mike. It's almost like the Saints should go to the 50 snaps of Taysom Hill a game offense and use that as their base, just because, when he does manage to load up the howitzer and the line can protect him well enough to launch one of the deep passes, maybe they can actually, Sean Payton can scheme one up, and then it makes their run game more threatening than just, straight handoffs to Mark Ingram, which is what they had last week. So they're a rough watch on offense. They're really not an enjoyable team to watch when they have the ball.
Eagles are last in DVOA against tight ends, but this is not a weapon for New Orleans. Adam Troutman, this was supposed to be kind of a hot sleeper this year. He's still kind of asleep. Juwan Johnson was supposed to be a hot sleeper. That hasn't really happened. So,
Troutman's catch radius is horrendous. He drops a lot of passes. If the ball's not on him, he is not catching it. He was responsible the previous week for a couple of the early game drops that got the Saints behind in their first loss. So, yeah, he's not a reliable target there, and they have to turn to him. And you're right, Tom. Like, you don't know, like, there's no identity to what they're doing right now. It's kind of like block like hell for Siemian, hope somebody shakes free. And the last 2 fourth quarters, it has, but one was the Falcons going into one of their fugue states. And one was, I think, the Titans, where it's like, they seem to think they were up 2 scores at some point, and like this sort of lapse kicked in, and the lapse got a little too lapsy.
It took them a while, but they did find a specific defensive weakness to attack, and they just kind of hammered that for a while. Okay. And I haven't seen the early practice reports on Terron Armstead, but if he's back, that would help.
That does help, obviously.
The Siemian thing, it's really weird to me. I don't quite understand the logic behind playing Taysom Hill over Jameis Winston last year and not playing Taysom Hill over an inferior quarterback in Trevor Siemian this year.
And making Taysom Hill the controversy throughout this training camp, where Taysom Hill was getting starters reps and Taysom Hill was getting all the practice time in preseason games and things like that. What did he suddenly do after 3 years in this role? Suddenly do to be like, oh no, we can't do this thing that we were talking about for a couple of years that we did for 3 games last year. We can't do that. We have to go with Trevor Siemian. It's mind-boggling that we suddenly had this change of heart by Sean Payton.
Yeah, I don't get it. The Eagles do not blitz much, but I do wonder if that will change against Siemian, because he seems like a guy you'd want to blitz a lot.
Right. I think when he's been able to sit back there, and he has had good protection, he has been able to complete some passes, get some passes on target, at least the guys who drop the ball, et cetera. I would be blitzing a lot. You don't have to keep your safeties back for any of these guys. There's not a lot of fear that you're going to get beaten by the Traquan Smith type receivers. Go after them.
So the line on this game is Philadelphia by either 1.5 or 2, depending on where you look. It keeps kind of moving around a little bit.
Yeah. It is 1.5 right now. And I'm not excited about this game. I'm leaning towards the Eagles. But, it's hard to have a lot of trust in them because of how up and down they've been and how many different chameleon changes they've had during the season. That said, I feel like right now they're the better team. I keep thinking that the Saints are about to drop off. Last couple of weeks, they look like they're about to drop off because of the problem at quarterback. And so I'm going to keep anticipating that and see if it happens.
I feel more confident in the Eagles' ability to make plays when plays break down than I do in the Saints' ability to do the same.
All right.
I think that's true with Siemian at quarterback.
Right.
This is a tough one. The FO Plus picks have the Saints, but it's really dependent on just how much I penalize the Saints for having Trevor Siemian, and that's an estimate. I mean, it's really an estimate. You're talking about 2 or 3 games worth of data to try to figure out how good they are really with Siemian versus how good they were with Winston. So I guess subjectively, I kind of lean towards the Eagles also, rather than the Saints.
It's a good game to not play.
Yeah, this is a good game to not play.
It's a good game to not play.
Indianapolis at Buffalo, also at 1 p.m.
This is a good game to play.
This is probably the game I'm going to be watching. Indianapolis makes the playoffs 65% of the time with a win, 31% of the time with a loss. Buffalo makes the playoffs 99% of the time with a win, 87% of the time with a loss. Like that Jacksonville game really cost them because they were at like 99% or something before that Jacksonville game. It's hard to imagine they could lose this game and drop below 90% in playoff odds. But if they lose this game and the Patriots win, like we expect the Patriots to win tonight, the Patriots will have the lead in the division. Joey Suck says, "Is there a prop for an indefensible Wentz interception?" Well,
I checked. There were no props listed for quarterbacks last time I checked. Usually, what you find is that the house puts the over/under on interceptions always at 0.5. It's rare for them to go up to 1.5 on that. But I'm joking in walkthrough, which is not yet published, that there should be a blooper, and the bloopers for Carson Wentz should be at 2.5. Folks didn't see the Jacksonville game last week. Carson threw a left-handed pass. He channels his Patrick Mahomes and threw a left-handed pass into traffic, and it was caught by, I think, Taylor for like a 2-yard gain on 3rd and 3. He also tried to shot put the ball like this while running out of the pocket. So Carson is still begging to make the low light reel every week. It's just that the Jaguars were not able to keep up with his improvisational brilliance last week. So don't think for a second that Carson Wentz is fixed just because we haven't seen him on the blooper reel for a week or 2.
The Bills' defense has been phenomenal this year, and it's not letting go. Like even the Jacksonville loss, their defense was still awesome. Like that Jacksonville loss is totally on Josh Allen and the offense. Like the Buffalo defense has been fantastic. They're number 1 in pressure rate according to PFR, and the Colts are one of the most pressured offenses in the league. So if you're wanting Wentz to do something stupid under pressure, there is going to be a lot of pressure.
This is your week for that. The Colts, and I think most of us see the offense is running around Jonathan Taylor right now. Both the running game and a level of the receiving game. I believe they're number 2 in open field yards. No, they're number 2 in second level yards and number 1 in open field yards. So the one thing that the Colts have really had going through them throughout this is ability to get to the second level, through Smith and Nelson on the line and pick up those chunk yards. I don't know how much they're going to do. I believe the Bills are 4th ranked against the run. I think that the
Bills are 3rd in DVOA against the run. Their DVOA, the actual rating itself, is basically the same against the pass and against the run. So I think the Colts should run a lot.
I think so. I just don't know if you're going to win this game I guess that's the avenue to win is to try to run the ball and try to keep it close and hope Josh Allen has another brownout where he can't convert on 3rd and short, can't convert on 3rd and medium. Another 14 penalties by the Bills.
The problem with that is the Colts are 28th in pressure rate on defense.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they are 23rd against the pass, but second against the run. And I think we were talking about the Eagles doing this, and I think the Bills coaching staff is also not afraid to just pass and pass and pass and not run the ball much against an Indy defense that is way better against the run than against the pass.
And the cornerback depth at Indy is really shit. I don't trust it at all, and I think Buffalo will do exactly what you say, and they'll just force the Colts to. They'll force them to tackle on short passes, and they'll force them to defend the intermediate areas, and Allen won't be afraid to take off if the Colts actually do manage to get something covered. So unless DeForest Buckner has a huge game and Allen just sort of brain farts his way into things, then I think this is probably not going to be the week's most competitive game.
No, and the Colts have so much Jets with Josh Johnson at quarterback, and so much Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, and so much whoever was quarterbacking the week when they faced the Dolphins, et cetera. So much of that on their schedule. Some of the things I think they look good defensively in those situations. I know they stopped Derrick Henry several times, which was impressive, but I don't.
But Henry was injured.
Henry was injured, in the one game, and then the other game they didn't totally stop him. They slowed him down for about a half. I don't know how great that defense is and how much it is. Well, these are very inept opponents, and we play pretty good on defense. I don't know if that translates to stopping the Bills.
Colts are 27th against wide receiver one, so big Stephon Diggs game could be coming.
Whoopsie, yeah. I think we know where this one's leading.
I think I hope that the last couple of weeks have ended the Josh Allen for MVP conversation.
Never.
Somebody needs to actually win the MVP to shut down. And
I guess there is no MVP favorite. Todd Singer says Colts safeties are off the street FAs right now. Well, that might get the Josh Allen for MVP discussion back then. Because that team is doing it with defense. The Bills right now are 14th in offensive DVOA. The idea of Josh Allen as the MVP is so ridiculous to me. And that's not a diss on the team that we have number one and that I just put money on to win the AFC. And I think is the Super Bowl favorite. I mean, the only reason I didn't put money on them to win the Super Bowl is that I didn't put money on anybody to win the Super Bowl, so that if I'm at the Super Bowl, I'm not rooting for either team.
Philip, if you're listening, please put a picture on this. Aaron Schatz says Josh Allen for MVP is ridiculous. Put it on everywhere. Put it all across the internet here. Let's get some clickbait going here. By the way, he's still the favorite at plus 250. Allen
is he really still the favorite?
At plus 250, he remains the favorite no matter what. He was the favorite after the Jacksonville game and before the Ravens game. When you were in Vegas, are you sure you didn't just see a bunch of Bills fans in Josh Allen t-shirts doing shots and taking their mortgages and throwing them at him for MVP?
Well, mostly what I saw were Kansas City fans celebrating their win. But
okay, well, that makes sense. That makes more sense.
I'm just blown away, and I would hope that the other voters understand that team is doing it with defense, and that just because you're the quarterback of the best team, it does not make you the MVP. Plus, frankly, to most of the other voters, Buffalo is not the best team because they're 6-3 rather than 8-2. I would think they would be thinking of Aaron Rodgers or Ryan Tannehill instead, because those teams are 8-2, or Kyler Murray, who, by the way, Kyler Murray, despite a really bad rushing value because of fumbles, is a much better MVP candidate than Josh Allen.
And Dak Prescott is down at plus 800.
That's the guy I would vote for right now as president.
Right. I think we have to get our brains out of the idea. It's like, well, we'll just give him comeback player of the year, which he is, by the way, at minus 400 at. I just checked. Like, no, he can be both. You can be two things in this world.
LL Salerno says, could Lamar Jackson be the MVP again?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
It feels like it's wide open based on, and if Arizona comes back and gets the number one seed, then I think it probably is Kyler's. If Packers get the number one seed, it really is like, it feels like it comes down to the NFC playoff race.
That's possible.
Yeah, although again, there's that, if Buffalo were to finish 12-4, let's say, sweep the rest of their schedule except maybe lose to the Patriots in 1 out of 2. It could be, people could vote for Allen. I would not vote for Allen, but people could vote for Allen. But you're right. I mean, the NFC playoff race, it's absolutely true that the MVP is nowhere near decided at this point and will depend a lot on what happens in the last 8 weeks.
Agreed.
So the line on this game is...
This game is decided.
The line on this game is Buffalo by 7.
Yeah, I'm taking it. I'm taking Buffalo. I worry about them because they are slow starters. We saw that in a couple other games, but I think that if we were really going on the merit, value, quality of these teams, they'd be probably a 9 or 10 point favorite. So I'm going to go with Buffalo -7.
Tom?
Yes. Right at 7 is tricky. It sets up the 29. We're up 10 points, and then they score the meaningless late. I'd still lean Buffalo there.
I think I lean a little bit towards Indy. I think if it was less than 7, I'd go Buffalo. But at 7, the possibility of the push at 7, I think I like Indy a little bit to cover.
All right. I don't see them backdoor covering, but 7 is a little high against a team that has had some success this year.
No, I would think less than a backdoor cover. It would be controlling things with the running game until Buffalo finally goes ahead at the end, kind of thing.
All right, I can see that.
Next game we want to discuss. Let's move to 4 p.m. Cincinnati at Las Vegas.
Ooh.
2 teams the DVOA does not like. Cincinnati. 40% make the playoffs, 40% of Sims when they win and 14% when they lose. Las Vegas, 41% when they win and 14% when they lose. Las Vegas is currently 23rd in DVOA despite a winning record. Cincinnati is currently 25th in DVOA despite a winning record.
I'm glad to see those odds up there because in my rough draft of the game previews, I call this a play-in game, like a wild card play-in game. So the loser's eliminated, and it looks like the loser is indeed eliminated from wild card contention in this virtually. One thing to point out is that Raiders ranked 30th in first quarter offensive DVOA, and they ranked 24th in first quarter defensive DVOA. So Raiders in the first quarter, it wasn't just last week against the Chiefs. They are generally letting themselves fall behind in these games. Now, the Bengals are also slow starters. I believe they're 25th in offensive DVOA. No, they're 31st, actually, in offensive DVOA, but they're 4th on defense. So the Raiders want to win this game, and they want to get back into this. I think they have to start out strong. And I think it's good. They're going to face an uphill battle, start out strong. They don't want to be playing from behind again in this game.
Vegas is 27th rushing against Cincinnati's run defense, which ranks 10th.
Yes.
Vegas running game is much better on first down than second or third.
Mm-hmm. And they just lost Alec Gold, so they lost their fullback, and that's a team that uses the fullback about 10, 15 snaps a game, fullback, especially in the running game. So that was one of the things I had written down here too. They need some kind of running game. They're not the Bills that have 15 other strengths and be like, yeah, our running game, we don't need it. We'll just throw the ball. They need a little bit of balance to get Derek Carr effective. They need that to control the clock a little bit. They need something they can hang their hat on. That's not it. And another thing I wrote down, and it might be in your notes as well, I believe they're 30th against short passes. And the 30th?
I didn't check, but hit me. I didn't write that one down, but I believe you.
Okay, 30th in short passes. And their depth, you talked about the Colts depth, folks were talking about that. The Raiders' depth in the secondary is not very good at all. Some obvious reasons why that's the case. And they've got Jonathan Abram in coverage a lot. He got attacked regularly by the Chiefs. He's going to get attacked regularly by those Bengals receivers and by Azuma and all the things that the Bengals can do.
Yeah, they have a lot of Nate Hobbs got hurt. They have a lot of a guy named Brandon Fashion.
Yeah, he's bad.
Who used to be with the Chargers, who's not very good.
He bad.
And what's left of Desmond Trufant, who got beat pretty bad. I don't remember by who, but there was definitely one play where he got beat pretty bad against Kansas City.
Right. So that's your guy covering Chase. And you have to have Jonathan Abram on the field every snap. And he's almost got that Jamal Adams type of thing, where it's
I would think it would be Casey Hayward covering Chase.
Okay, actually, no, you're right. It'll be Hayward. It should be
Hayward. Is a little better.
It is better.
But they've got three good receivers, right? I mean, despite the really great season Chase has had, Higgins and Boyd have not wowed, but they're still talented.
Yes. This is a tough matchup for the Raiders overall.
Vegas excels on first down defense. They're fourth.
Okay.
And they become 27th on second down and 23rd on third down.
Yeah.
And they also, this is interesting about their pass rush. Max Crosby had a good game, despite the fact that Kansas City's kind of schemed around him.
Yeah.
They blitz less than any defense in the NFL, and Burrow gets blitzed less than almost any quarterback.
Well, they spread that field out so much. And I think when you game plan against the Bengals, you're like, I'm going to find a weak link on that 5-man front. They're not going to have any max protection in there. I'm not going to try and blitz and get burned on the back end. I'm going to try and win with that. So, I think the one avenue, you mentioned Crosby, the one avenue to victory in this game, I feel like for the Raiders, is him going absolutely ham and tearing things up in there and just causing so much disruption that Burrow, can't get the ball downfield. I don't want to say gets hurt, but gets sacked frequently, is off his game.
Yeah, between him and Ngakwe and Carl Nassib, I mean, they've had a good pass rush this year, but it just did not get to Mahomes. They just moved Mahomes away from that backup right tackle, and he got the ball to his receivers. And I don't remember who plays right tackle for Cincinnati, but hold on, I'm going to check.
Rife, isn't it Rife?
It is Riley Reif, yes.
Reif.
Who's better than what Kansas City put out there, but is not great.
No. So they'll get some wins on the front four. I just don't think you can get enough wins on the front four to solve all the problems you're going to have on the back end, all the problems that are starting to sprout up on offense. And again, the possibility that early in these games they go out there and don't necessarily have their act together in the first quarter of the game, and you're already playing from behind.
I wondered if this could be a big Darren Waller game. The Bengals are 20th against tight ends. And because I think from what I've seen of the Raiders lately, they're missing that consistency on offense.
Waller's numbers have been down the last 4 or 5 games compared to what they were back at the beginning of the season.
And how much Carr was feeding him early in the season. And, Brian Edwards was a useful role player, but he's not a guy who can really be the key chain mover in your offense. And maybe we'll see a little bit more of Deshaun Jackson, because without Henry Ruggs, they really needed that deep threat.
And Jackson moved the safeties back for Kansas City. There's no question. He's, despite the fact that he did whatever the hell he did on that play,
he moved them back and gave him the ball.
He did the thing he's supposed to do, which is he did stretch the field and move the safeties back when he was on the field. It's just he was only on the field for 10 or 12 snaps. I don't remember exactly, but it was not mostly it was Zay Jones, and Zay Jones is not scaring anybody.
No. You're not going to replace Henry Ruggs in midseason with Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, you will get some of that. But by the way, the Waller prop, you mentioned that, Tom, that Waller prop is way up at 71.5. I would not touch that right now. His numbers are down. And even if they try to feed him the ball, it might be a thing where you're force feeding a guy and he's covered. He's not going to get the ball downfield.
I might prefer the Uzuma prop because Vegas is 29th against tight ends.
Right, and part of that is, like you said, Facion and Abram. And there is
having to cover guys.
Ooh, the Uzuma prop is way down at 28.5.
Oh, yeah. I like that one better.
It's so exciting. I might do it, though, because it is. And 2.5 receptions, too. So, I would actually...
an idea to write up for ESPN Best Bets.
Yeah, because I wouldn't take the receptions. I'd take the 28.5 because, he gets free for, a 30-yarder up the seam, and then you're done. And you don't have to worry about him catching another ball.
Joey Suck says, it has to be so hard to be in the Raiders locker room from a human perspective right now. I have to imagine the players are fairly demoralized with all that's happened. I mean, I sat there. I was at the game on Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so I sat there and listened to the interviews afterwards. And they are trying to not sound like this is an issue. They're trying to sound like we've got our act together and we're moving forward. But no, I've got to imagine that it's got to be pretty tough, especially if you were friends with Henry Ruggs.
Yeah.
That seems to me like a much harder situation to deal with than what happened with Gruden.
With whom? With Gruden? Oh, you mean
what happened with Gruden?
Right, with the
because
players.
It's not like any of them were personally friends with Gruden and were upset that he got fired, like they probably were closer with the special teams coach than they were with the head coach. So the fact that, you're right when you talk about the fact that Gruden being gone probably hurts their preparedness for things like third downs and red zone because he was such a stickler for detail on those things. But as far as like the intangibles of coaching, I can't imagine that that's like depressing to lose your head coach. But the thing with Ruggs is depressing.
I think you're agree. I would agree with that. Yeah, because like with Gruden, some people are like, "Oh, I saw the emails. He's a racist. MF. Goodbye." Someone was just like, "He cursed me out 15 times. Goodbye. Whatever. Let's try something else." It all has to stack up to the point now as the season gets on where the guys start to get one eye on the golf clubs. You hate to say that, but like and they're still in the playoff hunt right now. But like they're one loss away, one setback away from saying, I can just stream it at this level for the rest of the season. And then I can be playing golf on January 9th and not worry about this stuff. And I know that like some of the older guys, that's how they start to get
started. That's part of why this is a big game, because whoever loses this game kind of goes into that mindset a little bit. And whoever wins this game is very much in the race.
Yep.
Cincinnati is favored by 1.
I think our FO Plus has the Raiders.
I believe we do have the Raiders, yes.
But I don't see it. I don't see it from the matchup standpoint. I don't see it from sort of the big picture standpoint of one team coming off a bye, another team coming off sort of a probably a pretty tiring, exhausting Sunday night game. I don't see it from the injury standpoint where you keep losing a guy. Yeah, you lose Ruggs and you lose Ingle. Well, Ingle's not a big deal except you already lost Ruggs. It's like you're constricting from both sides here. I'm going to go with the Bengals.
So what are you playing, Mike? Are you playing the Bengals first quarter line or are you playing the under in the first quarter?
Oh, that's the thing. I was going to do that. I would probably go under on the first quarter line. Let me check that. By the way, I need your voice in my ear every time I place a bet going, I need that because it will stop some of the bad decisions I make. Okay, the over-under for first quarter is 9.5. I would go under 9.5 again because I have two offenses that are slow starters. So I might play that, but it's only a 1-point line in the first quarter. I'm not touching that.
Yeah. Looking at the game overall, I am leaning toward Cincinnati. I just don't trust what I've seen from Vegas lately.
Right. Yeah, I guess I would lean towards Cincinnati too, despite the fact that the FO Plus picks have it Vegas by 0.5 point. I would stay away from. I feel like this is a pretty 50-50 game, and I would stay away. I like that Uzuma yardage prop. That's what I like.
Go roll with Uzuma. That's our play of the week on this one.
The game that is considered the biggest game of the week, although it's not for playoff odds, but it's obviously a really interesting game, is Dallas at Kansas City. Dallas makes the playoffs 99% of the time when they win, 97% when they lose. Kansas City, 84% with a win, 63% if they lose. More importantly, Dallas wins the number 1 seed, gets the NFC number 1 seed twice as often if they win this game than if they lose this game. So that's what it really matters. It matters for Kansas City getting in and winning their division, and it matters for Dallas for the number 1 seed. They're in the playoffs probably, whether they lose this game or not.
Right. And the Cowboys are coming in. Everybody's thinking shootout. Cowboys are coming in with the 4th-ranked defense in DVOA.
Yeah.
Number 1 against number 1 receivers. Of course, that's the Trevon Diggs factor with all these interceptions.
Yeah, that's the interceptions, I think, more than it is yards. But they're low on yards, too. Yeah,
they're low on yards. And also, Cowboys number 1 on short passes, which I think is a recognition, as if you've watched Diggs' game, he is vulnerable deep. If he's isolated one-on-one on a receiver, he's given up some deep passes. I don't think he's going to be one-on-one with Tyreek Hill going deep a lot. But the Cowboys have been very good at sitting on some of the shorter routes, getting turnovers by a couple of different defenders, and also by disallowing a lot of the short passes as well.
I think Dan Quinn is more likely to go away from his historical patterns and play 2 high safeties against Mahomes than Gus Bradley was.
Right. Gus Bradley was pretty locked in on that.
He was pretty locked in on cover 3 on 1st and 2nd down, and he only went to 2 high safeties on 3rd.
Right.
Aaron, do you have the Kansas? I think you tweeted out the Kansas City run defense splits over the
He's
last
up to
couple weeks.
10th in the last 5 weeks. Yes, they were worst in the league for the first 5 weeks, 10th for the last 5 weeks.
Wow.
And that's why, I thought Dallas might say, okay, we're just content to just run the ball on the ground, just and really try to quote unquote control the pace of the game. But Kansas City, and especially since they've moved Chris Jones inside, they're not quite as much of a punching bag as they were earlier in the season. So I think this could be less of Dallas tries to just run the ball and control the game, and more Dallas just looks to try to score points and say, okay, we're going to just challenge Patrick Mahomes to beat us by making good decisions, and we'll play too high and make them execute down the field.
I think another reason for Dallas to pass the ball, Dallas, 45% passing DVOA on first down, which is 3rd in the league, versus 0% when they run, which is 7th. But Kansas City is the worst defense in the league against first down passes compared to 8th against first down runs. So you should come out and be against your normal pattern and pass the ball against Kansas City on first down rather than running the ball against them on first down. Then run it on second, like 2nd and short or something.
Yeah. This would be a great time for Kellen Moore, and I guess McCarthy, he does something there, to come out with one of those really intricate early game plans that we saw earlier in the year, where we saw Zeke and Pollard on the field at the same time, but one was in the slot. They were using it for screen pass, swing pass opportunities, using them to bring the defense up, and then you could go over the top. It was more with the tight ends in the past. Now they've got their full complement of receivers back. Do some of that stuff and try to take an early lead. Do need to point out we now have CeeDee Lamb back in the slot for the Cowboys, which is not something we had earlier.
Yep, because we've got Gallup back. Yep,
got Gallup back. He's playing boundary. CeeDee's in the slot, and I don't know who covers the slot. I don't think anyone covers slot receivers for the Chiefs. So that's potential headache fuel for the Chiefs defense.
I will also point out that the Dallas Dak Prescott is among the most blitzed quarterbacks in the league this year. So Steve Spagnuolo loves to blitz, and opponents have blitzed Prescott all year. Hasn't necessarily worked, but Kansas City, I'm guessing, is going after him.
Have you looked at the weekly splits in that? Because I think with some of their offensive line injuries that you might see a strong weekly split for Dallas.
TFR, but that would be interesting to look at the weekly splits.
Right. I'd be more likely to blitz them when they had a couple of the guys out, when they had Tyron out, when they got the guys moved around.
Yeah. Because from what I've seen of Dak, I think he's handled the blitz well this year. Blitzing doesn't seem like the right strategy unless you don't just trust your cover guys.
It's just, but it's what Spagnuolo loves to do. So
yeah. I think Spag will do it. I just don't know if it's the right call.
Kansas City is favored by 2.5.
Cowboys and under. I want to point out that the under is way up at 56, something like that. This is not going to be a shootout like that. Okay, we talked about how the run defense for the Chiefs has improved. We talked about how the Cowboys defense is better than anticipated. I don't see this game going all the way up to 56.5. So I'm rolling with the Cowboys and the 2.5 and the under. And you can get that, by the way. I got that yesterday at plus 265. So I'm loving it.
I'm feeling Dallas plus 2.5 too.
Okay.
I'm feeling Dallas plus 2.5, and I like Kansas City to be better than, and I think Kansas City is better than where they are in DVOA. I do feel like their offense is going to rebound to be maybe the best in the league for the rest of the year. But I think Dallas is really, really good, and so I think if you're going to give me Dallas and some points, I'll take the couple of points.
Were you and I the only two who picked Dallas to the Super Bowl in our preseason predictions, Aaron?
I did. I picked Dallas.
Yeah, and I did. And
I picked this as the Super Bowl. I picked Dallas, Kansas City as the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to this game from that perspective. And, it's like you two, I lean Dallas in the points, and I do think under is probably a good call, even though they may start out passing, even if they do start out passing rather than trying to run the ball.
Right.
Let's finish up with, well, first of all, Kyle Lutz has a question, which is, if each of us was a pigeon, which starting quarterback would we poop on? I mean, my first response is to not poop on a quarterback, but to poop on someone else like Tyreek Hill. But I guess I'd go with Roethlisberger to punish him for prior misdeeds. Plus, he has no mobility left to get out of the way.
I am going to every bird feeder and every little park bench for every little lady I can find and getting all the breadcrumbs I could possibly handle. I'm going straight to Aaron Rodgers. I don't think my pigeon poop is enough to like overstate like some horrible things other humans have done. But for this whole anti-vaxxing thing for the last month, it's happening. It is happening, and it's happening to Aaron Rodgers.
Tom?
For some reason, Daniel Jones popped into my head for no, and I can't really justify that at all. But that was like my first reaction. It's like Daniel Jones.
You're in New York. You're a pigeon, so you're in New York, or you're in North Jersey. You're like the good feathers, right? So you're gonna poop on Daniel Jones, and you're gonna go to the Scorsese statue afterwards. Perfect.
All right, let's finish up with Pittsburgh at the LA Chargers. That's the night game for Sunday. Pittsburgh makes the playoffs 67% of the time if they win, 35% if they lose. Chargers, 73% if they win, 44% if they lose. And I think we should talk about this game with the idea that Roethlisberger is going to start, because if Mason Rudolph starts, then the Chargers are your clear favorite.
Right. The line, which is around Chargers minus 5.5. I'm trying to find it right now. Sounds Mason Rudolphy to me.
Yeah, it's Chargers -6 in the Vegas Insider consensus, and that does sound Mason Rudolph.
It does sound Mason Rudolphy to me. So, but I don't know. I mean, there is a drop off, but when I watched Mason Rudolph, he looked like just very much impersonator Ben Roethlisberger. I didn't know that when Ben Roethlisberger got old and lost his fastball, 27-year-old Mason Rudolph was also going to start underthrowing all of the passes to all of the receivers, and yet that's what it looked like in that tie against the Lions.
Chargers are a good defense to have a backup quarterback against, I think, because they're the worst run defense in the league. So if you want to ride Najee Harris, this is a good game to do it.
Right.
Is that likely to produce many points, even against the Chargers?
No, but it'll control the clock, and it'll do well. Their run defense is terrible.
Steelers' run defense is also not phenomenal, and they're going to be without T.J. Watt. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. What is the scoop on
I believe
TJ
that they're without T.J. Watt. He suffered an injury I thought was going to be for a while. But even when he was healthy and in the game, I know he missed some time in the game, the vulnerability, and this is not a great matchup for Austin Eckler and the Chargers, the vulnerability there is that you can run right up the middle against the Steelers, as the Lions did, if you do not fall behind and let them kind of come after you with the pass rush.
I will say Adam Schefter reported that the MRI on TJ Watt's knee and hip came back negative, and he may not miss any time. That was a couple of days ago.
Okay. So it is still up in the air here. So
still up in the air on TJ Watt. Okay.
As of 1 hour ago, defensive coordinator Keith Butler did not sound overly optimistic that the Steelers will have TJ Watt available this week. That is from the beat writer of the Post-Gazette, David Lally. So let's call it like
I trust beat writer today more than I trust Schefter 3 days ago.
Makes sense. I would agree. There's also some problems on the Chargers end. Tillery, who we often talk about here, he's on the COVID list. And I believe, was it Joey Bosa is also on the COVID list?
I believe Joey Bosa is on the COVID list and is unvaxxed, which makes it less likely he'll be able to come back for this game.
Boy, that guy had a big sign on his forehead saying, "I'm going to be an unvaxxed player," didn't he? Anyway, it's hard to talk about this game like 3 days out with all of that going on. But let's do so. let's go.
Steelers are 4th against short passes and 20th against deeper passes. And there's been a lot of discussion the last couple of weeks, I think, about the idea that Joe Lombardi's offense may be neutering Herbert by having him throw short so much and not deep. And this would seem to be a defense, especially if there's no TJ Watt to hurry you up. This would seem to be a defense where you want to go deep, not short.
I would agree.
Yeah, when I was looking at when I was looking at Tannehill stats earlier, I just noticed that Herbert also had a lot of the real quick game, shorter throws, and so it's like Tannehill, Herbert, and Mack, and a couple backups, and Ben, of course.
Yeah, one thing I'm looking up here, I'm trying to, in my mind, besides Mike Williams, who they go to deep. Who do they go to deep in
the rookie Palmer, Josh Palmer, and Jalen Guyton?
Okay. Yeah. That's not like a murderer's row of deep receivers here. So I'm trying to pull it up quickly on Sports Info Solutions.
I mean, you can run Keenan Allen on a 20-yard route.
Yeah, it's the deep routes they seem to be attacking are like the deep over route, and as opposed to a pure vertical route. So I really do, but it does seem like they're not doing enough to attack the intermediate area, sort of like 8 to 20 yards downfield. It's a little bit too short, their passing game right now, from what I've just sort of casually seen.
Yeah. Chargers are 30th against tight ends, so it could be a big Freiermuth day.
Every day is a big Freiermuth day. He's the star of the show out there in Pittsburgh. Yeah, just looking at some of the stats, backing up what you said, Tom, that's the case. I can't like add it up in my head here. Not a lot of targets in sort of like the 10 to 20 yard range. And the targets that you do get, it's Allen, it's Williams. Yeah, the other guys are Guyton and Palmer. They're trying to use Jared Cook as a downfield target, which is So that's not an area of strength for the Chargers offense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Chargers -6.
It's too early to make a pick on the game until I know the quarterback.
I would not touch this with a 10-foot pole until we knew the quarterback.
I checked the sportsbook. I normally check it, and they don't have the game listed.
Okay, that means we might be getting news soon. If I had to, if you say you've got to make a play right now because we're putting it in the parlays into a time capsule, I would probably take the risk on the Cowboys and the Steelers, and the points, thinking, well, if we get Roethlisberger back, we get Watt back, or they can manufacture like through their running game and through special teams tomfoolery of the Chargers, you can get a cover there. I would go with the Steelers, but again, we're flying a little bit too blind here.
I'm with you. If I had to bet it based on the idea that it's 50-50 Rudolph and Roethlisberger, I would go with Steelers +6, but I would really not want to.
Right.
The fact that it's -6 in the first place tells me that we're expecting to see Mason Rudolph on Sunday night, and in that case, then I would expect the Chargers to cover.
All right, so you like the Chargers -6
at the current uncertainty level.
Yeah, Rudolph's bad.
I'd expect that line to change before game.
It's definitely Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is in the situation where they don't need one quarterback for the future; they need two.
Yes, and it's bad that they put themselves in that. They do have Dwayne Haskins hanging around. The fact that it keeps being Rudolph is speaking to us about Haskins at this point.
That is true. All right, folks, that does it for our Thursday game preview show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing to the show, especially if you listen to us as a podcast afterwards. Make sure you rate the show so people can find the podcast. Don't forget our limited time offer for FO Plus to get all our advanced stats and splits, fantasy football research, picks against the spread, which are like 10 games above 500 this year. Only 99 cents a week, footballoutsiders.com/subscribe. Thank you to everybody who comments during the show. Thanks to Tom for joining us. Thanks for Mike, as always. Scott Spratt will be here tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern to talk fantasy and get you ready for your DFS slate. And I will be back Monday to wrap up Week 11 and preview Monday Night Football. Until then, everybody enjoy what is probably tonight's Patriots blowout. I know I will be. So long.
Josh Allen for MVP.